Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit interesting. Today is going to be looking at a video and we're essentially going to be reacting to it. This is going to be the first time I've seen this video, and it's basically going to be a reaction from myself as a builder, looking at some of the earlier building practice. We're talking about 80 years ago now, that a lot of the houses that we work on today were built. So we're talking about the 40s, post sort of World War II, and it was actually made for training for Commonwealth countries in building practices, so that they could be trained basically to help to rebuild after the war. So we're gonna dive straight into the video. I'm just gonna my thoughts as I observe things, maybe some things that maybe that we still do today, some things that I find interesting, some things that I may even critique as well. So let's jump straight into the video and let's see what we've got. This is actually made according to the description for post-war Australia. Okay, so it says it's a hands-on step-by-step construction walkthrough, and it's from Film Australia collection, a National Film and Sound Archive of Australia, and the year is 1945. So the credits are the Australian National Film Board. So it says it was made for the Department of Labour and National Service for use in the Commonwealth Reconstruction Training Scheme. So we are gonna look at this video. Right, so obviously it's a brick house. It mentions we're building a brick house here. So let's have a look.
Before the construction of any project, the architect carefully prepares working plans so that correct coordination of all trades is ensured. The principles of building construction are the same for all types of work, no matter how large or how small. The examples to be shown are applied to the construction of a house, but the principles involved may also be applied to larger types of construction. Besides good principles or methods, successful construction is dependent on 1. Good planning, 2. Good craftsmanship, and 3. Good teamwork.
So actually, as he just mentioned, first thing that came to mind, and this is something that I've applied to myself even in the jobs that we've been doing, that to be honest, once you have sort of the basis and you have certain things in order, even from a small job like an extension or something like that, you can apply that to essentially any size of construction. The fundamentals are just applicable really. So as he said, even though this is to deal with a house, the principles and the information in this can be applied to any larger size construction.
Firstly, one must be certain of the strength of the foundation. The trenches have been excavated to receive the footings, the wooden hurdles correctly placed and marked with a saw cut so that the setting out lines can be stretched between them. To strengthen the concrete, steel reinforcing rods are used, which form reinforced concrete beams when complete.
So one thing that's different already from the UK is that the trenches here, there was a couple of things actually. The trenches here have reinforced steel beams in it. A lot of the time when I do our videos, we get a lot of people who are not from the UK who ask questions, said, oh, where's the steel? Or this is not gonna last, stuff like that. What people need to understand is every country has different methods of construction, and most of the time the methods are based on the climate of the country, the soil types that are sort of more prominent in that country, the whether those countries are prone to sort of earthquakes and hurricanes and sort of stuff like that. So we can see here we've got rebar in here. We not, generally speaking, we don't use rebar in our properties here, especially back in 1945. One thing also I do know is that the foundations are quite shallow, and I found that we found that a lot in the UK, that a lot of the foundations are quite shallow back then. But most of the time our foundations are just made of brick. Obviously, being a shallow foundation, the reinforced steels will help as far as the foundations being shallow. And I guess a lot of the construction around that time was also about speed, how quickly we can get it done. So I'm assuming that was all taken into consideration.
Each length is fabricated before laying in the trench. The rods are twitched together with tie wire at all crossings. This job employs a continuous concrete mixing plant. The mixer can deliver large quantities of concrete for any period required. Watch how the materials go into the hopper. First, the aggregate.
I'm loving the size of the wheels on these wheelbarrows. I wonder if that makes it easier to roll.
Now, the cement. And the sand. The proportions of these materials vary according to the strength of mixture required. The correct amount of water is added whilst the materials are being mixed in the revolving drum. When mixed for the required length of time, the concrete is conveyed to its position on the job. The concrete is rammed or puddled in between and around the reinforcing bars, and lime must be slaked before mixing with sand to form mortar, and lime should stand for several days before using. The bricklayer turns the mortar over.
So you can see now the bricklayers come in now, started to lay the brick, and again, this is something that's common in the UK, that our houses being built with lime mortar. Typically today, it's not as common to use lime mortar. All the older houses have lime mortar. There's lots of benefits over it. One thing that we've come across now, 60 years later, is the deterioration of the lime mortar. So we're finding we're coming into houses where the mortar is basically just deteriorating, and it's so brittle, it's just worn away. So I guess that's one of the downsides of it. I'm not sure how that compares to a more cement that's just based mortar. As far as the next 80 years will be, we will find out. I couldn't tell you, but definitely the lime mortar does have a lifespan. I find it's easier to work with, especially with the houses back then, where I would assuming this is not going to have a cavity in it, probably a 9-inch wall. The lime would allow the walls to breathe a lot better, so to allow moisture to escape from the walls and so on. So I guess that is part of the reason why they used the lime mortar back then.
With his trowel to make it smooth and workable. The first course on top of the concrete footing is laid. Piers are bonded into the walls to support the floor bearers. These attached piers are in line with the sleeper piers.
We see a lot of these today.
And in this position it prevents dampness rising in the wall. Here, the architect inspects the placing of the damp course.
So you can see they've got DPCs here, and they actually, you can see at the time frame there, they're actually using some sort of, they're probably a bitumen or something like that. You can see it's on a roll. Now most of the time what we use is some sort of PVC plastic DPC. Obviously we've got slate DPCs as well, but it seems like this is probably going to be a bitumen of some sort, being that it's on a roll. What's also interesting is the architect inspecting DPC. We still have that today. It's such a vital part of the job, but it's not inspected by the architects. Maybe back then the architect's job was to do that. Today we have what we call building control. Building control is totally separate from the architect, and building control is the one who comes and checks that, and they actually do come out on site to check your DPC before you kind of bond it down.
Wall ties are necessary at regular intervals, both horizontally and vertically. Air bricks are essential for underfloor ventilation. They also ventilate the wall cavity. The reinforced concrete floors are supported on a brick corbel course.
So we do have a cavity here, which is interesting. It looks like it could be about 50mm cavity maybe, or something like that. It looks like we do have a cavity, and they have air bricks to vent that cavity as well, to allow moisture vapors to escape through that wall. So we can see that there is a cavity here.
This course is grouted in with cement mortar to make it solid. The drainer is at his work whilst the remainder of the building proceeds. The drains are carefully taken through external walls and turned up to floor level to receive the waste from interior plumbing fittings. Note the different fittings necessary.
Again, that's something that's changed now. PVC, everything now is PVC. These old clay drains. This is what we deal with every time when we come to an extension, and we have to adapt into these. Most of the time we deal with clay drains. We do have some metal, usually outside of the wall, but in the ground typically we'll come across these type of clay drains. The problem with them now is that a lot of them have cracks everywhere, all the ground movement, compaction of soil, and they leak everywhere underneath the ground. So once you start digging foundations, even though you're not even digging, touching the drain, you will start seeing water seeping out of the ground. That's just basically leaking out there from one of these drains somewhere. So everything we do now is we've replaced with PVC.
The sewerage service pipes are being laid to a predetermined fall. The drainer seals all collars with cement mortar so that no leaks can occur.
That is a lot of joints.
Inspection openings are provided, particularly at points where the drains change direction.
So it looks like, it's almost looked like he's using a putty or something, but obviously it's some sort of cement that he's using to fill in the gaps around the joints. So one thing I find interesting, there's a lot of joins in here. Obviously, too many joins is not good because every joint is a potential leak. But it seems like that's how they did it. Very short. They look like about 1 meter lengths, and then there's a collar on each one. So I guess that's how they did it there.
The building is up to floor level, and before the floor timbers are fixed in position, ant caps are placed on top of all piers to prevent the timbers becoming infested by white ant. Note the sleeper pier is opposite the attached wall pier. The bearers are then placed into position and the floor joists correctly spaced on top of the bearers. The brickwork is up to windowsill height. The window reveals are formed and the undersill flashing is carefully placed in position. The fireplace and chimney breast are being built, and the window frames are lifted into position and securely attached to the brickwork where it abuts against the frame. The construction of a corner window. Note the corner column being placed inside the wood construction to support the steel angles, which in turn are necessary to support the brickwork over the windows. Note flashing at sill level again.
So that's cool there. That was the window detail. So it looked like it was a corner window, and they have inside the timber they've put a steel post to, I guess, support. So it's like almost like a cantilever. So that's quite interesting to see that there's a steel post in there. I noticed that the windows are wood, and a lot of the houses we find, these older houses, how they were attached, they wouldn't have used we use plastic wall plugs or concrete screws and so on. A lot of times everything's nailed. You would find a lot of in between some of the courses, maybe on the reveal, there will be timber inside, and they would nail through into those timbers basically inside the mortar joints, and that's how a lot of them would be fixed.
Is also built in above all window and door openings to prevent dampness dropping or running down the cavity and lodging on top of the frames.
So that's essentially what we call a cavity tray today, is what they're essentially building.
The moisture passes outside through weep holes. The architect is inspecting the window construction to see that it has been carried out according to specification, and the bricklayer is checking his levels to prepare for the wall plate. As a finale to his work, the bricklayer builds and completes the chimney. The chimney tray, which acts as a damp course, is placed into position. Note the weep holes which are left in the brickwork to allow moisture trapped by the tray to escape to the outside. Meanwhile, the carpenters are busy on the ground cutting and preparing the roof timbers. Note the bird's mouth cut in this rafter for fixing to the wall plate. In the roof, the carpenters are nailing the ceiling joists to a hanging beam.
So you can see here, there's no power tools here. It's all hand saws and nails, hand saws and nails. And I love these shoes. Oh, look at those shoes. Look at those shoes. No steel toe caps here. I love it.
Down below, the carpenters are cramping the flooring boards for securely nailing to each
It's
board.
like he's borrowed his sister's shoes there.
In the roof again, they are assembling and nailing into position the pre-cut roofing timbers. The roof construction is finally inspected by the architect as it nears completion. This tradesman is plugging the wall for the fixing of a door jamb, whilst an electrician sets a recessed...
So this is what I was mentioning about him plugging the walls here, where you see this bit of timber inside the mortar joints. And we just funny enough, we just had to knock a wall down on an extension. We're knocking through, and there was so many of those in the wall, and they were all completely rotten. And then also what happens with them in there, some of them are actually internal sills as well, and a lot of them have rotted out, and they actually cause the walls to sort of drop a little bit, which causes cracks Sometimes that's the reason why these cracks appear.
Switch box in the wall and securely cements it in position. The door jamb is now lifted into place, plumbed and nailed to the plugs. A last glimpse of the bricklayer is seen as he carefully places the capping course, thus completing the chimney. Before the tiler commences to lay the tiles, the roof plumber must fix the eaves gutter because the tiler works from the gutter upwards. The roof tiler is the next tradesman to come onto the job. His job is to cover and make watertight the roof framework erected by the carpenter. We now see the roof tiler carrying stacks of tiles onto the roof ready for laying. Watch how...
Imagine running up a roof with that many tiles on a wooden ladder today. I mean, you wouldn't even be allowed, they wouldn't even allowed to use ladders like this now, but the confidence he had in that wooden ladder there, I wouldn't be having that kind of confidence in it with that kind of weight as well.
Watch how carefully and easily he walks along the open roof and stacks the tiles on the battens ready for laying.
And you notice as well, no fall arrest, no scaffolding around that. The things we all moan and cry about, this was the normal thing these guys had to do to build. These guys had to get the job done, obviously post-war as well, and they were just men, you know, they just had to get it done. And also another thing to note, I notice here is the roofs are cross battened, but there's no sort of membrane at this time. I guess there was no membrane on the roof between the tiles and the rafters.
Now observe how he lays the tiles quickly and without hesitation.
It's amazing. You're seeing these roof tiles in there now. We still see these roof tiles today on many roofs. Many roofs we see all these style of roof tiles. A lot of these tiles have still lasted through so many winters, so much seasons. We still see some of these tiles today.
The plumber, in the meantime, is connecting the downpipe to the eaves gutter. Back again with the roof tiler, we see him cutting and fitting the tiles to the hip. Watch how he marks and cuts the tile to the required shape. After the tiler has laid the roofing tiles around the chimney, the plumber fixes a lead flashing to make watertight the junction of the roof with the chimney. We see him raking out the brickwork joints for insertion of step flashing to face of chimney.
And I'll say again, no power tool, so raking it out by hand and chisel. And also what's interesting is that the lead flashing and the guttering were installed by the plumber. They call him the plumber. So it seems like the same guy who's doing the plumbing is doing the lead flashing. He seems to do everything to do with water and water tightness, whether it's the guttering, the flashing, the sewer pipes and so on. Obviously things have changed now. Typically the roofers are the ones who do lead flashing, and a lot of times the roofers are the ones who do guttering as well. So that's interesting to see. A different tradesman's job was to fit the guttering before the roofers, and also to do the lead flashing after the roofers have put the tiles in.
The flashing is securely fixed into position with lead plugs, and the joint is then pointed with cement mortar.
We still do it this way today.
Having completed the laying of the tiles, the tiler proceeds to make his work watertight by setting into position the capping tiles on the hips and ridges.
Again, this is typically how it's done today. We do have now dry verges and dry hips, dry ridges, which is basically where we don't use mortar to secure them. It's used with some sort of membrane and mechanical fixings. I think in the building control now, they typically require mechanical fixings, although you can still do it like this, but they require an additional mechanical fixing, so that's either some sort of screwing system where the capping and tiles are actually screwed down, so that if the mortar goes loose over time, they don't actually, the wind blow them away or they slip off the roof and so on.
The roof tiler securely ties the tiles to the fixing batten with copper wire. A small lug is cast on the tile for this purpose. Once the roof covering is on, the structure is complete and the plasterer begins the work of adding the finishing surface to the walls. After this operation, the ceilings may then be fixed. The painter, who meanwhile has been prime coating all painted timber and joinery, now gives the cement rendered walls a priming coat.
So it's interesting to see the walls were plastered and then the ceilings were done. Now typically we do the ceilings first and then plaster the walls after. But a lot of the time that's because of plasterboard. It's easier to install the plasterboard underneath. But it seems that they plastered the wall and it looked like some sort of lime mortar. Again, we come across this stuff all the time. And most houses now, older houses, it's completely shot. It just falls off the wall. It's had its time and we're hacking it all off now, and we're dot and dabbing most of the time plasterboard. What some people call sheetrock or drywall. That's what we're using today.
Electrical switches are fixed and a neat cover plate completes the job. In the kitchen, the plumbing fittings have been placed in position and a plumber fixes the water taps. The carpenters have built into position the kitchen cupboards. And
these kitchens, I still come across these type of kitchens today, these style of kitchens. It's been a little while, but I still come across these style of kitchens. And you can see these kitchens were all manufactured by carpenters on site. It wasn't all this flat pack chipboard and everything. They came on site and they actually built the kitchen in situ. And it's funny now, this is still how we do it in the Caribbean. Carpenters come in and they build your kitchen to your spec in the space where it goes.
And fix a skirting to the wall. On the exterior, the painters are busy applying the final coat of paint. This is exacting work and requires careful consideration and careful application. Meanwhile, the carpenters are fitting and hanging the sashes to the box frames.
Oh, lovely sash windows.
Note the sash weights, which must be of the correct weight in order to balance the glazed sash. And note how smoothly the sash runs up and down because it has been correctly fitted. Having completed the building, attention must now be given to outside requirements. Paths must be formed, steps built, and all work left clean and tidy on completion. The architect, builder, and everybody concerned is pleased and satisfied with the result of this project because it is the product of good planning, good craftsmanship, and good teamwork. In this film, you have seen the importance of coordinated effort on the part of all trades. May it serve as a guide to all who are interested in good construction, no matter how small your task. Your part is necessary in order to achieve a successful objective. Remember, teamwork ensures success.
And that was it. So you can see the emphasis of this video was to sort of inspire, educate, make sure that people were coordinating their works together. As I said, it was a major rebuild, especially in the West at that time. But it's interesting to see all of these, I mean, obviously since Australia, very similar practices to here. So I guess people would have had the same sort of instructional stuff in the UK and they were pretty much on the same page. So it's still very close to home, and it's interesting seeing so many of these houses that we work in today. I just come across just exactly what I just saw in the video, and not a lot has changed, to be honest, as far as construction practices. Things have been improved here and there, but typically a lot of what we saw here is still kind of done today in some sort of sense, at least the principles of it anyway. So yeah, guys, hope you guys enjoyed that video. Tell me what you think. If any of you maybe worked in that era and you did that, there's a lot of tradesmen here. Maybe some of you, or maybe even your parents worked in that time, would have been involved in these trades. But let me know what you think of the video, and we shall see you on the next one. Take care. Thanks for watching.